I was shocked. Oh. Okay. So I'm gonna hold it back here like so. So I wanted to try something a little different, right? And a lot of these, they tend to be very informational, and I talk about links in a way that is relevant to me, right? Today, I want to talk about how these things are relevant to you. And so I thought it would be really cool to have more of a conversational panel where we get to talk about these links and our experiences through music. Does that sound like a good idea to y'all? Yeah, I was mulling it over for a while, man, because I was like, yo, and I'm gonna show them this clip, and I'm gonna show them this clip, and I'm gonna talk about this. And I'm like, well, the thing that I love about MAGFest is that we all love video game music, right? We all love music as a medium in general, and you know, there's a reason why it's music and gaming and not just gaming. So hopefully these guys get here pretty soon and we can actually have a conversation. So I'm gonna start and I'm gonna say, who in the crowd are musicians? Oh, wow. How many composers? Awesome. So I'd like you guys, if it's cool, to come on up. Come on up. Yeah, move on to the front. See, just by a show of hands, there are so many people who are immersive in this thing. And so, like, while we talk about, for example, I'll give you a real quick example. We can talk about how Final Fantasy is technically anime, right? Like, Final Fantasy, they took it down, is all of those things. Person running the room, you can leave it up. So what I did instead is that I have a series of questions for you guys, right? And mind you, when the homies get here, we're gonna talk about those things. But what I wanna focus on is something conversational that allows you guys to express why it is important and what connects you. And I thought that would be a cool way to kind of change it up a little bit rather than just showing clip after clip after clip, because I have so many conversations with everybody, and this is all we talk about while I'm here. So grab a mic, good sir. Say hello to the people. Tell them who you are, what you do.
Hello everyone. How's everybody doing? My name is Don, aka Navo the Maestro. I am a producer, pianist. I play a few instruments here and there. Big gamer, and grew up on video game music, hip hop, anime, gospel, you know, the whole nine. So glad to be here. Sorry. Okay. Glad to be here with Chris, and I'm glad he invited me on. And yeah, let's just have a dope conversation about it.
All right. So now that I have the you done lost the mic.
might have to switch it out for another.
So for anybody who doesn't know, hi, I'm EyeQ, and I'm a musician. I like to make music about video games, anime, love, life, and I'm very big on telling a story that is involved in the life that I live in some way, shape, form, or fashion, right? So I think it is important to connect those things in significant ways, right? So I just want to start with everybody here, right? And whether it's anime, whether it's video games, sorry, I'm gonna come down to you. Whether it's anime, whether it's video games, I wanna know about your inspirations and what brought you here. Is that cool? All right, let's start with you.
Cool.
Tell them who you are, by the way. Shameless plug, tell them who you are and what you do.
Yeah, got you. So my name is Trent. I'm a hip hop producer and video game composer. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, everything at Ronin's Realm, RONINS Realm, everywhere. But yeah, basically I started out producing for like local DMV artists, Baltimore artists, mainly hip hop. But I was inspired by video game music because I kind of feel as though if you're gonna make your own music, you should try to pull from inspiration that is something close to your heart, that maybe doesn't have something immediately to do with the genre that you're in, just to kind of spice it up. And I know like this whole panel is about how they relate to each other, but on the surface, it maybe doesn't seem that way. But once I kind of started using video game music as inspiration for my instrumentals, I decided to sort of just take it a step further and just learn how to write video game music. So now I do both. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Hold on, real quick. See, that's the thing that I want to highlight, right? Is for some reason, and I started realizing it after a while, I was like, man, it'd be nice to talk about it. We all have a story like that, right? Like, video games, when I made hip hop, was something that I started to like really incorporate because to me, it was a representation of me, right? And so when I started talking about those types of things, I said, okay, I'm not exactly sure how I want to approach these things. I'm not exactly sure how I want to approach these things, but I know whatever I create, I want it to be authentic to what I do in life. And what do I do in life? I game, right? So that's where it started. Hello. Please tell me your story, because I'd like to hear it.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Shoemate. My now husband, Nick Shoemate, brought me to MAGFest for the first time in 2018. Now we're married. But I am a violinist. I grew up playing violin in many different orchestras, and I love film music. I love the powerful, epic, sad, beautiful, like Tim Burton, or really Danny Elfman, John Williams, Hans Zimmer. I like love the epic film music, and I realized video game music kind of can do the same thing. It can be powerful, it can be beautiful, it can be sad, it can be exciting. So I love just that element of especially like fantasy and action music. And I am also honored to be part of the MAGFest Community Orchestra, which started last year, and we will be performing tomorrow early in the morning. So just a plug for the MAGFest Community Orchestra.
And I'm gonna say, snake eater, all day, every day. All day, every day. How you doing, good sir? Now we all got a story in some kind of way. I want to hear it.
So my name is James Gray, at the J Ninja on Twitter. In case y'all want to follow me, follow me, shameless plug. But I'm a game designer and game VGM artist. I also do it all. I do like regular art and like 3D art as well. I'm kind of a jack of all trades, but I'm looking to start my professional career. I have a couple amateur fan game projects under my belt, stuff like that. But I started producing my own music in like, I want to say 2015, and just started uploading it to YouTube. I make a lot of video game remixes and a couple originals, and so I started started doing that consistently, refining my craft. When I got into college and I started doing game design, I realized that I was like miles ahead of my peers on that. And so they would come to me and ask me like, hey, what can we do for these sounds or for these songs in the background? What songs can we use for these sections? Stuff like that. So I started kind of being the guru for that. And then when I started getting all my things together, I started doing all the other things. They would, once again, because I'm, that passion kind of follows into all the other things that you want to do. They would start coming to me because I went and I did all the work to try and figure all this stuff out, And that's mainly all, that's all it is. It's like you come together. As soon as you find that passion, you start to kind of connect those things all together in some form or fashion, and it'll bleed into each other, you know? And so that's what I do. That's my thing. I'm a VGM composer.
Thank you. Are you ready? Oh, yeah. All right, I want to hear it.
All right. Hi. Oh.
I'm going to stand here.
Hi, my name is William McCracken. I am a student composer over at Towson University, actually. I got started with music actually playing the trumpet when I was young, but as I was like in my like late elementary school, middle school, I started discovering like my huge love of video game music. I played this little game nobody's ever heard of called The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. And I was like, wait, this is actually really, like, the music here is really cool. And, you know, as I've, you know, grew up, I started getting introduced to more and more, like the big orchestral scores and other Nintendo properties and stuff outside of it. And I realized one day, like, hey, I want to be a musician, but I actually want to create music and really work on video games, because I think video games as like an art form, and with the music in video games, it really pushes the limits to what we can do and kind of evolve things. I want to be part of that process of not only like learning to evolve things more, but also just seeing what happens and being a witness to what goes on. So I write music of various styles, but I also work a bit with the game design club at my university. And yeah, you can find me online at my Twitter and like YouTube is like at WGM4Music, if anybody's interested.
Beautiful. Say it again. The number 4? 4, yeah. Yeah, the number 4. Yeah. Another thing about being a musician, never be afraid to tell people where they can find you, right? If it's one thing I'm gonna say right away, let them know where they can find what you do, right? A lot of times we feel as though like we have to be ashamed into talking about like, yeah, I make music and you can find me here. It's like, yo, well, if you ain't proud of your work, who's gonna be? You gotta let me know why I should be listening to you. Don't be afraid, say what you gotta say. My G.
Thank you. I'm not gonna lie, I'm still a little nervous. I didn't expect to be up here right now, but my name is Antonio, and you can find me on Instagram, Bandcamp, and all that under Black Cowboy Music. That's the name I had. That's the name I had for years, and I'm from Philly, and I've been in the Philly music scene for a few years now, but I've been playing music since 2004. So I don't know. I play a lot of guitar. I think I'm in a little different of a spot than anybody else here, or most people here, because I'm more of a musician first and a big video game fan second. Like growing up, I always listened to a lot of different music from my parents, from just my school around me. You know, I was always like that kid into just like hip hop, rock, metal, jazz fusion, just finding anything that can appeal to me. But I think the first time that a video game soundtrack kind of captured me and made me realize, like, no, this is legitimate. It's not just something that, I think for some people who are just musicians, they don't get video games, they might see it as like lesser for some reason, right? But I think the first one that kind of got me like that was Metroid Prime. I remember just, it's just that combo of like the electronics of a lot of the keyboards and everything, and just how you can just make full songs and just listen to them on their own and just see how legitimate that is. So yeah, no, these days I'm trying to incorporate a lot more electronic and game sounds into my music. I've been learning a lot more about synthesizers, FM synthesis. That's a whole like outside thing, but I've been producing music for years. I made like beat tapes. I do singer-songwriter stuff. I've done like I play in a jazz, not a jazz band. I don't play in it. I play like a jazz open mics in Philly, and I've been posting everything about MAGFest on here. So to get a lot of my musician friends hip onto this, because this. Yeah, I think it just can appeal to everybody, not just people who are in video games. But yeah, that's my story.
Thank you for sharing with me, right? Like, I really appreciate this because it, like, being vulnerable, right, and expressing in what we do, that's a thing that sometimes we feel ashamed of, right? And so I'm gonna link this in a minute, but there's a reason why I'm asking people about their stories, because no matter where we are, right, and which one of those specific things, there's a story behind it as to why they kind of move in that direction, right? We still got a few more.
Hey man, I got here 3 hours ago. So, my name's Mason. I'm a saxophonist, a composer, engineer. I kind of dig my roots pretty much everywhere I can. I got my start as a clarinetist in high school and decided to switch like a year ago. So I'm relatively new to kind of everything here, the trifecta. I didn't watch a whole lot of anime, never listened to jazz in my life before I graduated high school, and I just wasn't that big of a video game guy until recently. So, it's really nice to find that this is all these 3 things. They're not really a niche. They're like a lot of people love this stuff, and it's really powerful. Like these emotions that people elicit just coming here, watching people play, watching them enjoy things, truly, like it's beautiful. And this is my first MAGFest, so I'm trying to explore, what everybody's trying to come here for, see if I can learn some things, pick up, and then maybe teach some people something new. I don't know.
And last but not least,
Hey, how's it going, everyone? I'm Christopher Daniels. You can find me on Instagram at Lit Chaos Crew, one word, L-I-T, Chaos, C-H-A-O-S, Crew, C-R-E-W, I think. I'll double check that. Anyway, been going to MAGFest since 2012, haven't missed a year yet, and hopefully won't ever, we'll see. I am in 2 cover bands, one called Motorizer, which is a Motorhead cover band. If you know Motorhead, you know what they are. I do the gruff, like, kind of stuff. And then I'm also in a band called Smell the Glove, which is a reference to Spinal Tap. We're performing on March 8th in Towson, actually, at Zen West, I believe. Come find me after this. If you want more details, I'll happily talk to you. How did I get here? It's funny, honestly. I was 6 years old. My dad had a piano, and he managed to make it sound good. And I would go up to it and I'd be like banging on it, trying to figure out how does this work. And then I started learning instruments from there, and then found out guitar and bass was more my thing. And then, it's funny. I grew up kind of a very, I don't want to say lonesome, but I was very shy. So I was very shy, very quiet, and also having moved around a lot because of my life situation, didn't have a lot of friends. But what was consistent was my dad's 60s rock records, my mom's Santana collection, and video games. Lots and lots of that. And then that sort of interest got me over here, where all of that stuff kind of comes together. My love of music, video games, and anime. And I come here all the time, and just everyone I know is here, and we play. I'm always at the jam space playing there. So yeah, that's about it.
thank you very much. How you doing, Rob? All right, come on up on the stage with me, good sir. Let's go. There we go. Okay, so please give it up for everybody, right? Now, everybody here told you their walk of life. They told you what they liked in music, right? But there's one thing that you all missed, right? I want to hear your favorite video game, as in musically, right? I didn't hear anybody talk about the music and why it actually connected to them, right? But I'm willing to bet you, if I sit and I ask you your favorite video game probably came into something that touched on everything that you just talked about. Yes or no? Right? So I can sit here and say, oh my God, I'm EyeQ and I do all of these things, right? But at the end of the day, 12 years ago, I was exactly this. That's who I was. I came here with a hope and a dream and got inspired from video games and anime and the things that I loved. And that's what we talked about while we were here, right? And so that's something, when I look at everybody, I know that I'm not alone, and you just proved that I'm not alone, right? Thank you guys for, talking with me a minute, but just tell me your favorite game.
That's tough. Sonic Adventure 2 Battle.
Now, he likes to make rock music and just said Sonic. Favorite game?
I'm gonna have to go with Cuphead.
Does the man not bleed Cuphead? It's funny how those things kind of like, they pull to actually who we are. Favorite game?
It's a split. Bayonetta 2 and Yakuza 0. That's it. Yeah.
Now, if you can't tell me, like, you can't see that in that man in some way, if he was like, yo, I like Yakuza, I look at you and I say, I'm not actually surprised. You get what I'm saying?
Favorite game is hard, but if I were to have a split, it would be between Breath of the Wild / Tears of the Kingdom. That's great. And then less gameplay-wise, but musically, Destiny has amazing music. It's amazing.
Now, once again, not to like stereotype this man, but does that not speak what he just said? Does the way he's presenting himself not speak? And so the thing about these things is that we make our identities out of these things, but we don't think about it and we don't think about how they touch.
Sonic Unleashed.
Yeah, not even a, but that's what connects us all. Like it's crazy because like when I talk about these things and I'm like, yo, I would have never pegged it. But after a while I started looking at people and I was like, oh shit, you're a Zelda dude. You don't even have to have a thing that says Zelda on it. Everything you wear tells me Zelda.
Hi, I'm like a really indecisive person. So I grew up playing Mario Party, like all the Mario Party and stuff, and Sonic, like the racing game with the chows and everything like those. But so that's like what I grew up with. But gameplay-wise now, I've been really into Slay the Spire and Call of Duty, actually. Play a lot with my husband. But in terms of music, I want to say like one piece that really made a big impact on me was just, I learned about it last year, and it's Apotheosis from Journey. And we played it with the original composer of the piece, and it really just spoke to me last year. So that's kind of like musically just a piece that really inspires me.
I can sit here and talk about Journey for a minute. And like, so during the pandemic, Journey made me like people again. Am I wrong? Am I the only one? Am I the only one that wanted to actually talk to people because of Journey after an entire pandemic? I know I'm not alone.
The reason why I write orchestral music in the first place is because of Final Fantasy XII. A lot of people hate on that game. That is my favorite game of all time. And as you can see by my shirt, you know, I'm on it super heavy. So yeah.
See, about that life. Y'all can have a seat. Thank you so much. Make sure your mic works good, sir.
Check, check, check.
So, Rob, how you doing?
Good.
Please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rob Kovacs. You might also know me as 88-Bit. I'm a video game composer, pianist, singer-songwriter, producer, all kinds of things. That's it.
That's it?
Twitch partner. Here we go.
I make the things. Okay, so now that we're just here, right, I want to talk about inspirations. Tell me something about an anime thing, a VGM thing that you enjoy very much. And I'd love to hear more about what your process is when you decide to make the things that you make.
An anime thing or a video game music thing that we like very much?
Yes, sir.
My goodness. So much. I love Mega Man 2. That would probably be my favorite. I'll use this one. I'll just talk louder.
I'll probably.
Mega Man 2, that and Zelda are like the original Zelda are my two like games I grew up with that blew my mind, and I still love both of them. And the music in Mega Man 2, I always, the thought was just so cool. Every guy has his own theme. Each level, each character has his own melody. And in 2010, I thought to make a piano arrangement of Airman from Mega Man 2. And wanted to learn all the notes and try to play it on piano. And so I found like a MIDI that someone else made and transcribed all the notes and tried to figure out a way to play it, like every note. And it's not written for someone to play that way. Just a little thing about the NES, there's really only 5 channels in the NES. One of them is noise channel. One of them is so it just makes noise sounds, white noise. The other one is a sample channel. It's not really even used. It wasn't in that game. And then the other 3 can make pitches. So you can make up to 3 pitches at a time. So it's like you have a 3-person choir and like a beatboxer maybe. But that 3-person choir can like play any note at any speed, jump any octave. So they were like insane. So the composers, in this case, Takashi Tateishi was the composer of that game, put like just so much stuff into each of those lines that you couldn't do with like a normal person. So when trying to play it on piano, it was extremely challenging and an awesome like challenge to try to figure out how to do. But because I love the music so much and I wanted to present it in a way that normal people wouldn't hear it, rather not normal people, but people who wouldn't have played the game could appreciate it. Like my parents, for example, if they hear little like bleeps and bloops, they immediately just like shut off, like, oh, this is toy music. But if you present it in a different way, like on piano or some other instrument that they're more familiar with, they're more open-minded to it. And so my hope was that I could make a recording of that song and present it in a way that people would enjoy it. And that's one of my first examples of trying to take something from video music and put it on piano.
Nice.
It went well. It went well. Got a good response.
Tell me about an anime that inspires you in that process.
No, my level of anime is, I've seen 2 anime in my life.
He's like, I got 2 for you.
Princess Mononoke, I saw it last year for the first time. And then I saw the Boy and the Blue Heron.
Hey, okay.
And it was great. I loved them both a lot.
And what struck you musically from it? And between what you do, right? Because that's a lot of orchestral stuff that they do, right? Between that and what you do, what is the connection there for yourself? Do you see yourself in that world making any type of music that is that way?
That is like anime music? That's more orchestral jazz? Maybe. I don't know if I cover anime music on my Twitch stream as people ask me to play it, and I'll read it and just try to enjoy it. But I'm more interested in how anime has come to be, because it has its own sound. It's kind of rooted in jazz, like American jazz, but it's different. It's Japanese jazz, which is they've taken their own spin on it, and part of that is how they've learned jazz. And my understanding is, they learned it during World War II from soldiers, and did their best to understand it, but then have their own way of understanding it. And so they have their own way of making music, and so it comes out different. So that change, and sometimes I might hear, or people might hear something like, oh, that sounds off, or that sounds wrong, or it was stuff that we wouldn't do as in the West. We wouldn't do that here. But they do something really different, and it takes a minute to like accept it as like, oh, this is just different.
Go ahead.
So it's funny that you're saying.
They can't hear you.
Is it
Okay, let me get that. How's it going, man? Oh God, Jesus, this is loud. Fuck. Anyway. Yeah. Okay. Rob, first off, nice to meet you. We've worked on a track together. This first time.
Oh.
I'm meeting you.
Heck yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned like the Japanese jazz and American jazz is like kind of different. But I think if that's something that you want to explore, there's something I want to recommend to you, anime-wise. It's an anime called Kids on the Slope. That is all about Japanese jazz in the 1950s. And it's a kid that comes from a classical background being introduced to the world of jazz. And so short watch, like 11 episodes. But I think if that's something that you're interested in, you should check that out.
Wow, yeah. Kids on the Slope.
Yes, sir. So if I'm talking about like anime that I love in that way, right? There are quite a few. Kids on the Slope is on the top of my list. If we're not talking about Beck, why are we talking? So, okay, so this is Donovan, guys, and he's already explained to who he is, right? He works with an artist that played earlier today by the name of Sky Blue. And Sky Blue takes anime, video games, he takes all jazz samples and things of that nature, and they mix them together in a way which feels very old school hip hop, right? And so growing up, one of the things that, you know, when you were sampling things, you wanted stuff that wasn't necessarily recognizable. You know, no sample snitching, but you know, we always looked for something that was like that. And so I had family that would go to Japan and they would bring stuff back over, and that was their thing. Like, yo, don't say a word, right? Like, you don't know where this came from. And I loved it because I got to hear all of these different types of music that they would experience over there. And when I got Japanese jazz for the first time, I was over the moon. And we can talk about Plastic Love all you want because that's the popular thing, right? But if you kind of go digging in the crates, there's so much dope stuff that you can sample. So what I want to talk about with you is that, right? Like you guys just did, I'm still listening to the last project. And I definitely want to hear about that process and why you choose to go in that direction. Yeah. So, you know, and whatever you want to add, because I want you to talk about what you guys do. Was anybody actually able to see Sky Blue? By show of hands?
Appreciate y'all.
Appreciate y'all. And can you hear the influence in what he did? It's definitely all there. And if you haven't heard him, he'll be playing again Saturday night on the Chiptune stage. Shameless plug, Saturday night, Chiptune stage. But please, let's talk about that. Yeah, go for it.
All right, how's everybody doing? Can y'all hear me? Okay, I'm sure. All right. So first and foremost, I am a little shy. So if I seem nervous, I am. All right. So, but all jokes aside, though. So first of all, what I absolutely love about jazz, hip hop, anime, you know, video games, or the whole nine. I think the thing that they all have in common is this idea of freedom. You know what I mean? And you know, like I love classical music too, by the way. But classical music has, anybody who studied classical knows there's a lot of rules involved. You know, you got to do this type of cadence, and you got to have this type of chord, you got to have this type of smooth voice leading, whatever, you know. But you know, when we start moving from actually, you know, from even from slavery with with Negro spirituals, you know, we started there and just kind of having, you know, black people just kind of, you know, sharing, you know, what they had from, you know, from their land and from their culture. And started kind of expanding out into this freedom, this sound of freedom, which you heard early 1900s with ragtime music, you know, moving into like the swing era, you know, with Duke Ellington, you know what I mean? And you know, just having this dance and just making people want to get up and making people just want to move and just be free. And you know, and moving to the cooler days with like you know, Dizzy Gillespie and Charlie Parker, you know what I mean? You know, in the bebop era where, you know, Charlie Parker is just exploring just these different scales and passages and ways that he can express himself over, you know, these chords. And it really started to become this expression of musical conversation between a lot of musicians and players. And I think that, I didn't know, I mean, I'm sure that they didn't know this at the time, but they were really influencing just a whole, you know, new set of subgenres, you know, that were going to later come and be birthed from that. You know, really, really, there's really only, and of course you can debate me on this, but there's really like two main big umbrella sounds in music, and you have jazz and classical music, right? And everything else is just kind of like a descendant from those two things, right? Jazz is like one of the first like born in America art forms, so like you can actually call jazz American classical music, right? And so again, just bringing it to present day, Koji Kondo, if I'm saying it right, composer for the Super Mario, a lot of Nintendo games, man. He's mentioned that he's heavily influenced by jazz. Chick Corea, just different just pianists and people who just explore different types of harmony, and you can hear that in the in those Nintendo games that you play. So I'm saying all of that because, as a kid who grew up in a Christian household, it was kind of hard, hip hop and certain sounds and certain types of music I wasn't allowed to listen to, so we kind of had to just dig for what we had in the house at the time. And, we had Nintendo, you know what I mean? So those songs, while we're playing for hours, those songs are being constantly, repeated, and we're hearing those sounds. And, we move into, games like Tony Hawk, right? And I love Tony Hawk because, you have all these different artists that everybody didn't have access to before. You're expanding, different genres, a lot of hip hop, a lot of rock, a lot of different sounds. Same thing with like Jet Set Radio and stuff. But anyway, just moving forward. So, for me, I think the first game that had a real big musical impact on me was Ocarina of Time. I love it because Ocarina of Time had this thing where to progress through the game, you had to learn songs, you know what I mean? And it's like, so it's take you through this process, like, I loved hearing this song before, and now, like, they're having me actually play this song that I love. And so you kind of get that, that neural pathway, that idea, like, oh, like, I can learn to do this. I can learn how to connect this, this music and this sound. So again, just moving to now in my, like, production process, I think when I start to think about what I'm creating, I always start with a feeling, and I'm pretty sure as a lot of musicians have this same thing, but I have this thing called music color synesthesia, where I see colors with music. I see sound. When I hear sounds, I see different colors, and I have different feelings that come from it, and I always try to translate a feeling first. And I always think about, like, how did this particular song make me feel? If you listen to my most recent project that I produced with Sky Blue, there's actually a song on there that is influenced by Zelda, Legend of Zelda Minish Cap. There's actually a song on there where, there's a particular chord progression, a particular sound. And I didn't play it, verbatim, but if you really listen to it, you can hear kind of the influence that I did pull from that. So anytime I try to produce, I always try to start with like a feeling, and then sometimes I don't capture that feeling, but I capture a new one. You know what I mean? And I begin to kind of just play on that and explore on that and just add things and subtract things and talk to people and try to glean something from someone else. It's a process, but it's an absolute fun process. But anyway, just to drive the point home, the freedom that we hear in video game music, you can absolutely hear that being something that is directly related to jazz. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you so much so for me, right? Oh, go ahead. So for me, right, I see music in everything, right? Whether it is life, whether it is the actual music that's played, and I started kind of combining them because for me, anime is life, right? When we talk about things like lo-fi music, right? Lo-fi is heavily inspired by jazz. And when we talk about, when you talk about a show, when I think video games and anime, the first thing that comes to my mind, I thought about it and I was like, man, it's almost cliche. The way I wanted to bring it up was like Chrono Trigger, right? And the first thing I wanted to do was sit here and talk for an hour about Chrono Trigger and how it hits on those three things. And I was like, that's not actually having a conversation about these things, right? When I was a kid, that was something that did take all the worlds of the things that I loved and put them together in a way that I just, I can never over-explain. There's another game called Secret of Mana, right? And when we look at those games, we see every influence in them. It's just in chip, right? Like the storytelling is there, and that was the thing that I loved, like the fact that it had multiple endings and that I could do all of these things that I could, like in some of my favorite games at the time, I could turn around now and explore different facets of the game to get a different result, right? And so that's kind of where I jump. When I think of like, jazz and anime, and not, Chrono Trigger for the VGM, but when I think of jazz and anime, I think Samurai Champloo, right? So I started saying to myself, like, man, these feel more like trigger words than they do like an actual feeling or a thing that you experienced, right? And I'm willing, like, to say that if I ask you right now to describe a feeling from one of those things, it takes you back to a place where it triggered something and it triggered your obsession, right? And a lot of times we're so like deep into the thing that we like that we forget. It's like, okay, well, I don't want to do this because I only like video game music. But it's kind of like those things are one and the same, right? Like I go to anime cons sometimes and it's like, don't get any of that stuff in my anime. Like that's the way it feels sometimes. But then when you're actually in the same space and I'm walking around and I'm seeing people actually wearing anime things at a video game thing, I'm like, yo, bro, you realize, they don't, you don't have to separate your mashed potatoes and your peas. You can have them ill. I understand. She's like, no, textures. But that is the thing, right? And in most cases, we don't all get in the same place and have these conversations like we do in these rooms when we drunk. You know what I'm saying? Like when you throw in a couple back and then you're telling people, why you like those things. To be honest, Journey felt like an anime to me, right? When I was playing through it, I felt like I was going through an anime. And when I met people in the game, I was like, oh my God, like, let's do this. And I remember there was one specific person that went almost through the entire journey with me, right? And I just thought that was so cool. And so that's the thing. I'm more curious about your experiences, the thing that one memory that you turn around and you say, that's why I'm here. By a show of hands, I'm willing to bet you, do you all have that one experience that you can say, that's why I'm here? For real, if you do, raise your hand. Look around. Now, it might not be everybody, but it's a good chunk of y'all, right? And that's the thing that kind of brings this together in a way. It's more of the experience between you guys and the experience that we have together because we love these things. But when we get outside, the world kind of pulls you apart because that's what it does, right? But when you look around, I see black people, I see white people, right? I see like an entire sea of people that are here under one unifying thing, right? For me, this conversation is more about that than anything else, right? Like we're all people that love these things, but once again, it's what it triggers in me and my experience in life. So, once again, how much time do we have? How much time do we, is it 6? No, I mean like the wrap-up time. 17, okay. So I think I took too much time talking. What I'd like to do next, right, is like ask a question. I would love to talk about the things that this is triggering within you guys, if you have any. So I guess line up and let's talk it out together. Is that cool? There's a mic. It's loud. Please know it's loud. But yeah. Yeah, they're gonna ask questions and have conversations, yes. Let's start.
We're talking about like things that influence where we are now, things like that. I don't know how many of y'all are old enough to remember OC Remix back on the internet days, the early internet days. But DJ Pretzel back in the OC Remix days did a remix of, I want to say the Aquatic Ruin Zone of Sonic the Hedgehog. And it was called Love Hurts, the DJ Pretzel remix. And it was the most funky remix I've ever heard of a song, probably to this day. And I remember people would submit to OC Remix. It wasn't just like some guy doing it. It was a bunch of people uploading songs they made. And that was the first time that I was like, oh, I can do this. I can do this. People do this. I could make something and it could be a thing people listen to. And it was so crazy because that's kind of like the philosophy, at least mindset-wise, that I try to go into when I'm dealing with people who ask me what I do, you know what I mean, and how I do it. Because I think that's important, is to make sure that when you are showcasing your abilities, to not just place yourself on this like platform where it seems like your abilities are something that's far off and unattainable. Because it's not. We all do it. We all start somewhere and we all have to figure it out, what it means for us. When you say you want to make music, what does that mean? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to make it sound like? And the best thing about it is there's no wrong answer to it. You know, you just got to get out there and do it. And so, like, it doesn't matter where it starts. I'm saying all that to say it doesn't matter where you get the initial inspiration from.
Quick question. How many of you guys are chiptune heads? Chiptuners? So I think one of the first places that I saw it, like in real time, does anybody know Zantilla? There's a chiptune artist by the name of Zantilla, right? And if I had to explain to you who Zantilla was, like, just think Button Masher, right? But like funky jazz, real funky, right? And Zantilla plays, he doesn't play like the NES stuff. He actually uses the sounds from Sega, right? And so at first when I heard it, I was like, yo, why are you playing me Toe Jam and Earl? And then I found out it wasn't Toe Jam and Earl at all. It was this dude literally playing like the emulator, and it blew my mind because I was like, there are so many things from this, and I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that this dude was playing like real funky jazz, and it sounded like, you know, like a Sega. So when I see a lot of the VGMers that play now, right, like there's no way that you can turn around and say, like Carlos, for example, right? Carlos plays on things that have to do with anime and video games. And the thing I started noticing was that a lot of the VGM players were heavily rooted in jazz. And then there was this thing that happened where like everybody had this huge conversation one day, right? And it made me start looking at things in a way because I started reading the actual replies. And it was just kind of like, oh my God, you're not calling this jazz at all. So if everything that we do is rooted in those things, but we don't ever pay attention to where it comes from and like the beginnings of those things, when do we stop to talk about it? You know, like when do we point it out and not say like, oh, I'm superior to you because I know this thing, so I'm pointing at you and saying, well, you don't know this, right? And that's where the disconnect happens a lot of times, because instead of having a conversation where you're talking about why you like a thing, you're putting somebody down for not knowing a thing, right? You know, and I challenge you to all do that. Instead of simply saying, like, you know what, this person is stupid because of A, B, and C, take a second and educate them. You know what I'm saying? Put them on to some game. Because that right there is what keeps us growing, right? Like, there are so many like younger artists coming up in this, and at one point I was, and I guess I look at this a little different now, in the fact that like it's not just my job to entertain you, right? My job is to also educate. My job is to help bring younger artists up, and a lot of times when people do that, they complain about the things that the younger generation does, but they don't actually take them under the wing and show them different, right? And at some point, that'll be y'all. You'll be the old man in the room or old woman in the room talking about what you enjoyed back then. But, you know, at the end of all of this is understanding those things and making it more of a conversation. So we got about 10 good, oh, go ahead. Yes, you do. Say hi to the class.
Okay, so I am not a musician. I just really enjoy listening. And I looked at my Spotify Wrapped at the end of the year, and it's mostly just video game music and like movie scores. And I have a friend who for years was like, why is it that you listen to that? How is that even like music? And I've never figured out a way to tell her that the music that I'm listening to is music, and like really gives me such like a warm feeling, like it just like transports me to like all these other worlds and dimensions every time I listen to those things, more so than if I were to listen to whatever like pop music or anything like that. It's just a very different experience for me. How do I tell a person who has no video game experience, just a regular, degular person, that this music is music? What do I say?
I got this. Listen, I got this. I'm confident in this answer. So here's what I do before I even engage in the conversation. I study you, right? I look at the things that you naturally watch. I ask you questions about the things that you do and music-related things, right? That's just the same thing I do with anime. I'll first ask you 5 shows that you watch, right? And I make my recommendations based on the things I know you like, right? So like, for example, if all you watch is crime mysteries, I'm going to suggest something, you know, that is of that nature in anime, but I do the same thing in video games, right? So in other words, if you like shows that happen to have people that, you know, are doing espionage or you know, like crazy fights, then I'm gonna be like, yo, Metal Gear Solid, right? Like, there's nothing that you can do to not pay attention when you're immersed in the story, right? So don't even engage in the conversation. Take a minute Ask them questions that have nothing to do with it and everything to do, and I'm willing to bet you'll make the link between the thing that you can play to them that they'll be like A, B, and C, and don't even tell them it's video game music, and watch what happens.
I'd like to follow up on that too. One, you like whatever you like. Anybody can like whatever they like, and they can like what they like. And video game music is written by real people, real human beings, putting a ton of passion into what they're doing, both back in the 80s till today. It's very, just like people were writing movie music or ballet music for the past 200 years. It's extremely valid. And as an example, it was cool hearing all your stories too, and where you're coming from, where you want to go. And I want to tie this back real quick, but I would just love to encourage more musicians to play video game music and anime music outside of events like this, because it connects with people. Like you said, you listen to it on your own. Like, we don't just listen to it at these events. And you're not alone. Like, thousands, tens of thousands of people listen to video game music. And even if they don't know it, they can still enjoy it. So an example of, I do a lot of other random gigs back home. I live in Cleveland, Ohio, and I play music at the Cleveland Clinic once a week. And they have a great program where they have musicians play throughout the lunch hours for patients, workers, doctors, everyone, guests. And I used to mix it up. I play a lot of random stuff, classical, jazz, and pop songs. And now I just exclusively play video game music. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, if you've never heard it before, it's beautiful music. And people walk by and like, wow, this is really nice. Or they just enjoy it and like, I don't know what that was, but that was a really beautiful melody. And it's usually like Final Fantasy or Chrono Trigger or whatever. Or if you do recognize it, your immediate response to it is almost extremely positive, always positive. Like, we play video games to have a positive experience. So it takes them out of that moment. Hospital, it can be a difficult place to be. And an example of, people come up to me a lot and say that I recognize the song, thanks for playing that. But one doctor came up one time, I was playing some Animal Crossing music, and he's like, I was like, that was Animal Crossing, right? He never expected to hear that in the hospital. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, I had to call my wife. I was like, you wouldn't believe it. The piano player is playing the theme from Animal Crossing. And he's like, me and my wife played that like throughout the pandemic, and it really brought us together. And it's like, thank you for playing that, because whatever he was doing, he was coming from a patient or whatever. But for that moment, it put him in a different place. So video game music is more powerful than you may even realize. And I encourage you to play it on whatever gig you have, weddings, stage, background music, whatever. Play it, and you're going to connect with people.
Word. And so I guess I'm going to wrap with this, guys, right? That's not just pertaining to the word video game and the word music, right? Those things are related to everything. When you take away those specific stereotypes, it just becomes music, right? I think sometimes the divide comes between the fact that we keep saying video game music and some people just don't connect with video game, right? We say anime music and people just don't understand anime, right? That's the thing that I see that's the connector between everything, in a way where it's like we are so proud of those things because we all know how it feels for people not to like them. But when you come to a place like that, like here, you're surrounded by people that enjoy it the way you do, right? And that makes you feel good to the point where like some people live entirely different lives, and when they come here, like, they are themselves in their cosplay, right? How dope is that? They are themselves talking about that video game. They dress slightly in a way without saying, this is the thing that influences the way that I dress myself every day. And so that's what I wanted everybody to see, just maybe for a little while. Go for it.
Yeah, I just want to share too, because that's really dope. I think if you looked at my rap, you probably see a lot of game music too. But it goes back to something I was mentioning earlier, and it's the same thing that jazz provides, and that is a feeling of freedom with video game music. I mean, there are no bars that's holding anything back. There are a lot of older genres that exist now in video games that that we can explore. And one amazing thing about it is, it can capture very specific feelings, because that's kind of the job of a lot of composers, which is not easy. You have to make a player feel tense when you're fighting a boss, right? Or you have to make that, that player, feel like they're on top of the world, when they're playing Green Hill Zone, right? Or like, I can do this again after I lose in Street Fighter 2. You know what I mean? Like, these themes have these superpowers, to invoke these particular feelings and emotions. And again, that is the true connection that I think was directly influenced from jazz music.
Yo, you just gave me like an epiphany, bro. So check this out. I'm gonna tell you what it is, right? We have exactly 1 minute, so this works out very well, right? What is the intersection of hip hop, jazz, VGM, and anime? That's the question I pose, because that's what was in my head, right? The answer is freedom. That is the answer. And that is what I'm gonna leave you on today, right? When you engage in these things, no matter which type of con I'm at, the answer is freedom. Freedom to choose, right? Freedom to dress how you want to dress. Freedom to listen to what you want, how you want, and all it gives us, and no matter which medium it is, the connecting thing is it makes us feel free as human beings. Apply that to your lives. That's it.